Hello, I'm Katinka Soetens. I'm very grateful to be a part of this empowerment event organized by Mary. Thank you very much for creating this so that we can all cooperate in healthy ways, healthy new ways so needed in the world. As some of you may know, I'm co-organizer of the Glastonbury Goddess Conference, an annual event that really celebrates Goddess, the Divine Feminine in all her faces, all her different names, different themes in different years. I'm also the director of the Path of Love Mystery School, which offers many teachings and trainings in sacred sexuality, in empowerment, and in the path of love, specifically grounded in the Priestess of Rhiannon training. The next first year cycle is starting at the end of October, so it's still time to check out my website and find out more about it. So my offering today is really coming out of that work with the Wheel of Rhiannon, which is based on 8 houses or 9 houses, including the center house of initiation, working with the great archetypes, healthy forms of the archetype, and then shadow hunting into the distorted forms that we all have within us for many of these archetypes that we haven't really healthily initiated out of. So I think that these times are challenging, and that we have, as people, and especially as women, to really look at the places of our own shadow, our wounding patterns, our survival mechanisms, coming out of power over structures of patriarchy, so that we can actually really free ourselves, heal ourselves from the disease of competition, and step into the new healthy ways of being empowered and empowering with each other, not so that we may rule the world, but so that we can be part of the solution for the many problems that we face politically, environmentally, personally, interpersonally. And so really this is a complex journey out of which I'm going to give you a snippet specifically around my views and ways of working around sovereignty, because this is the seat of empowerment in the Wheel of Rhiannon, the teaching of Rhiannon. Rhiannon, who is one of the great Celtic sovereign goddesses, which really meant that she was recognized by many, many tribes over a huge area, not just in Wales, as Rhiannon Nipona, as sovereign goddess, as a bridging deity who was honored and celebrated in many different regions of what is now Europe. So I'm going to share with you my presentation about empowerment and the sovereign archetype. Now, let me just see if I can get this screen to share and talk to you while looking at the images. I hope you can see this. And then I have to find, oops, yeah. So let's just go back. There we are. Okay, so empowerment as the gift of and the seat of the choice of the sovereign one, the inner sovereign one. Inner sovereignty is very different from the outer forms of what we think of as sovereignty, which most of us actually have big issues with and, you know, really want to get away from, because they are power over systems on the whole, on the outside, in our unhealthy societies. But the sovereign queen is a forgotten archetype of the goddess and has a lot to teach us about what this really means and where empowerment comes from, what form does it have, and how does it want to behave in the world. So to be very clear, what the sovereign queen in the goddess archetype is not the monarch. It's not monarchy. It's not the empress. It's not the great queens of the English history that we glorify. These are all actually examples of the distortions of this very ancient Proto-Celtic and Celtic idea of how we are in relation with the land, in relation with the divine, and in relation with each other, very importantly. So when we're looking at the queen, you know, the diva, or the empress, the ruler of the colonial realm of takeover and the hoarding of attention or wealth, the controlling aspect. These are what we're really looking at, are the forms of the distorted archetype that really in its healthy form is nothing to do with cruelty, with ruling over, with the power to take life. So if you're looking at the distortions of the queen in fairy tales, which are really wisdom stories, wisdom goddess lore stories, you get a good teaching of what not to do, how not to be the cruel queen, that we associate with leadership or with rulership. Really, the two are very different. The healthy sovereign queen is leadership, which is circle-based, and the unhealthy queen is disempowering, which is symbolized by the taking of life, off with their head or out with their heart. So when we step back a moment from this more modern form of the sovereign one, what we immediately find is how the goddess as queen of heaven and earth has survived in our psychology, in our symbolism, and in our religions, particularly in Catholicism. So here she is, queen of heaven and earth. She's crowned and she is radiant. She is open. And what she's not doing is life-taking. She is not saying off with your head or out with your heart. We go back further into the full goddess cultures of our indigenous spirituality. And what you find is this reference to Queen of Heaven and Earth as a title of the sovereign goddess. Really a development of our human psyche, where we begin to see our relationship between the land and the people of that land as a form of deity that is personified by usually a woman with animal characteristics, like you see here. This is a queen of the night, she's officially called, but Inanna Ishtar, with her wings and her claws, the owls and the lions, very important symbolic wisdom totems, because they form the portal, the owls, the wisdom animal, but also the travelers between the portals of the three realms of the upper, the middle, and the lower underworlds. And so this is the deity, the goddess, who you will meet when you step through the portal of opposites, when you step through the gateways of reality. And she is there holding the keys of life. Very different image to what we're used to thinking about sovereignty in the modern day. Here again, some other examples of goddesses who were known as Queen of Heaven and Earth, or who had this very strong portal quality. Astarte here in the middle with her horses. She's linked to Rhiannon Epona for me. And she is, you can see she stands on these skulls because she is goddess of the underworld. She is the portal of life in the meeting of masculine and feminine, in the erotic creation of life, in the rebirth, renewal cycle. And she's holding these corn plants, these food plants. She's the great, abundant, nurturing life force, the queen of life. And so you have these beautiful symbolisms where the goddess is the tree of life. She is the portal between the different realms. She is associated with the sun, with the moon, with the stars, with the earth. She's often flanked by her animal forms, which are very much part of her energy, her teachings, the qualities she is holding for us to embody as healthy, empowered people. So the sovereign queen, the sovereign goddess, and our inner sovereignty, which is the seat of our empowerment, is very much associated with the Celtic philosophy of belonging to the land. We are of the land. She is the goddess. She is the sovereign goddess. And we come out of her. We serve her. We are in relation with her in deep, intimate, beloved kinship. And then we return into her to be transformed and to be reborn, renewed, restored again in this great cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. So we, as empowered sovereign, inner sovereign beings, the inner sovereign one, the inner sovereign queen, the inner sovereign king, what that really means is that we're sitting in that absolute connection of knowing who we are, our right to belong. It is not a right that we are lording over or that we are domineering around, but this great trust of belonging, because we are of her, we are of her nature, of her lands. This is, of course, where tribalism originates from, that then gets distorted into nationalism. But really, in its original purity, this is the seat of empowerment. Your inner empowerment is part of your inner sovereignty. It has nothing to do with anybody else's opinion of you. It has nothing to do with you seeking approval of anybody. It has nothing to do with you having to have so others don't have and control. It has nothing to do with any of the distorted behavior where you can't take responsibility for your own actions, where you can't step into a place of service to serve life, to serve her as the land, what is needed at this time, and where you can't receive, where you can't follow the guiding question of Rhiannon Ipona in particular, of what would love do, which is the place of receiving of the sovereign one. So the queen, the inner king, the inner sovereign one, receives and gives as a continuous, harmonious, interconnected flow, and exactly as the land and nature and the cycles of the seasons teaches us all the time. So our ancestors gave form to the deity who was the sovereign queen, the sovereign goddess, often carving her image onto the land, as here the beautiful horse of Uffington, which for me is a form of Rhiannon Ipona in the landscape. But also if you go further back, you will see her carved her earliest forms into the rock art of the caves, of the sacred initiation places of our ancestors. Here, Kavshovet, this beautiful Vulvic goddess, flanked by the lioness and the bison, who are part of her body, part of her. Again, there's a portal element here. Big story about this particular beautiful piece of sacred art, which is not for now. And then in human form, as here, she's called the Venus of Malta, or the Sleeping Lady, and she is from the Hypogeum in Malta. But what she really is a goddess statue. She's actually an embodied priestess, which we know from the markings on her clothing, which is actually not clothing, but that is also another story for another presentation. So you have this where we give form to her, often in her early shaping of this aspect of her being queen of the three realms, the heavenly realm of the cosmos, of the soul journeys, the physical realm of the earth, and then the underworld of the ancestors, of the dead, of the rebirth element. And you see this in the form of the wings that we give these early images of the sovereign queen. Of course, here also Isis in her mother form, because you have then, this develops into this symbolism of the goddess who is the mother to the son, who becomes her beloved, who dies, who she finds in the underworld and renews, rebirths again in this great cycle of queen of the realms. Yeah. Again, in the, of course, in the art of the Middle Ages, you will find these qualities represented symbolically. For example, in the flowers of the lily and the rose and the jewels of the middle realm, here in this image of Mary. But if we go back to the earlier goddesses here, we have Inanna and also Durga. What you get here is the qualities of this empowerment. What are the qualities of empowerment that the sovereign one, the sovereign goddess, brings us, shows us, related to these three realms, related to the solar power, the solar life-giving power, which both these two deities have, and therefore associated with felines, with the lions, in particular lion, lioness. But this also represents the creature of great courage. So one of the qualities that the sovereign queen teaches us is courage and the power, the empowerment to overcome whatever would stand in our way, not from a selfish point of view, but for the greater good of all. Whatever would stand in our way within ourselves, what would destroy that empowerment, which is a place of generosity, of kindness, of equality, of equilibrium, harmony between the realms, of balance, in the sense that balance is about, you cannot have winners and losers. That is a disbalance. That is an imbalance in our world. And so when you see the sovereign queen as goddess with her lion and her lionesses, as here in this beautiful image of Cybele sitting on her lion throne, yeah, often she's seated in this throne, this sovereign goddess, and again, the throne of empowerment, really, of the sovereign one. Brigantia here in this painting by Marion Brigantia, where she is represented with her solar disc and her lion of courage, which of course you find in the English symbolism, national symbolism all the time. When you look at earlier goddesses, she often is flanked either by a lion and a lioness or by two lionesses. And what is interesting in the quality of the queen, the healthy queen archetype, is that lionesses hunt and live and operate in packs, in small groups of equals, small groups of mutually supportive lions who are not in competition with each other. So this is a very good medicine from this sovereign goddess archetype in the healthy form, how the disease of competition is an absolute disease of patriarchy. And the queen, the healthy queen, the sovereign one, brings the empowerment to step out of that and to be the action needed to be the difference. Another quality of the earlier goddesses, sovereign goddesses, is leadership skills. Leadership skills that often translated into the actual queens, as this beautiful queen here from Egypt. I forget her name in this moment. And the qualities of justice and a rightful action. Rightful action, not from a place of revenge, not from a place of, well, I have the bigger army so I can do what the fuck I like, really. No, rightful action in service to the greater good of the people, of the land, of all of life. So what you can begin to see here is that the sovereign goddess here in a form of Aphrodite has this great capacity for self-reflection. One of the reasons why the lover goddesses like Aphrodite or Rhiannon has a mirror, this capacity of self-reflection, of owning your true intentions, your wounding places that may be ruling you, to be free from the rulership of your wounding places and survival patterns. That is sovereignty. That is inner sovereignty. Yeah, and so, of course, we are human beings and we all have these places of wounding, but we need to really step into our empowerment to become aware of them, to break the rulership, the absolute domination that these parts of ourselves have over us, over our behavior, our thoughts, our patterns in, like, say, relationships, in our participation and perpetuation of the patterns of competition, which are the great marker of the unhealthy forms of the queen and the king. So on our wheel, as we work within here in the Avalonian lineage, she is on the wheel of Rhiannon. In the west of the wheel, the element of earth, this time of Mabon now, the autumn equinox, which is a point of balance, a balance between light and dark, a balance of inner reflection and outer harvest, a balance of giving and receiving, a balance that is a crossed over mudra in the body, as you can see in this image of this queen archetype of the autumn equinox. Yeah, the element of earth. And she is the goddess of giving and receiving, and of knowing that the opposites are not a real reality, that they are actually just forms that we can play with, that we can move through to find this place of real inner power, empowerment, embodied power. Another way of saying empowerment is to say embodied power. Now, what would you do with that power? This queen archetype, which corresponds to the menopausal life part of a woman's life cycle in relation to the wheel of the year, the solar wheel. Yeah, this is very much the time in our bodies where we get to reevaluate what it is all about, really, what we are willing to do and put up with, what we are willing to give, what we would like to receive. The things that you've learned all your life long around your cycle, around your body, around your fertility, they disappear, and you have to re-find yourself, going back to the beginning, back to the opposite side of the wheel of the younger archetypes, where, of course, also the wounding places have initiated and landed and become sort of ingrained behavioral patterns that stop us, that block us from being the healthy forms of this sovereign one, this sovereign queen archetype. So again, another beautiful way of looking at this balancing quality of the queen goddess, sovereign goddess. So we saw in that image that there was an apple in hand. The apple is the fruit, the harvest of this time of the year here in the northern lands of the northern European lands. It's more the pomegranate in the Mediterranean lands. So this is the wisdom fruit. This is the wisdom fruit of the goddess, of the sovereign queen. And of course, we find its relation to the snake, the ancient deities of life force, the ancient goddesses of the knowing, the deep inner knowing of the cycles of life, death, rebirth, of the unity, of the balance, the harmonious balance of opposites, including the opposite of masculine and feminine within us. And this our interconnection, our absolute flow, to be a part of the flow of the vibration of life, of nature, this belonging to the land, this kinship wisdom. And so you have this, of course, the association with the apple, with the sovereign queen goddess, and the snakes, as in these images here, again, the winged goddesses who represent the queen of heaven and earth. And this beautiful image here of an Etruscan goddess who sits on the throne. Again, the throne, this seat of our empowerment, this embodied power. And what you do with that. How do we act from that? What does it mean? Does it mean, oh, well, now we have the rulership of the world? Yeah, we can name and claim. Or is it something different? Is it actually a much humbler place of where the belonging to a land, to a country, is really the belonging to the whole earth? And the whole earth, these sacred places, these sacred islands of the goddess, these sacred power points where we get to be in relation with her, in kinship with her. So if we were to let our empowerment be informed by what our relationship to the sovereign goddess might be like, what our kinship is, that gives a very different flavor. Yeah, this gives a very different flavor to this quality of sovereignty, inner sovereignty, the seat of our empowerment. So Rhiannon, in her queen aspect, autumn queen aspect, her sovereign goddess aspect, teaches us about realm, our realm. And this is not the realm of the monarch. This is the realm, the inner realm, and then the outer realm of your choice. I love the English language when it can be playful like this. So realm, the real me. The real me that's not pretending, the authentic me, my authentic yes and no, my authentic giving and my authentic receiving, my authentic embodied power and what I do with it in relation to others. So your realm, which is really also the place where you choose your ownership of your shadow and your shine, which is the queen's choice. Choose ownership of your shadow and your shine. Not to outdo in competitive modes somebody else, not to destroy their livelihood, not to make sure that they can't have a little bit of shine, a little piece of the pie. No, in circle work, in circles of equals. So choosing the responsibility for your realm, the real me, and how that wants to manifest in relation to everybody else, everything else, and in ways that are cooperative and circle-based, circle of equal-based. These are the teachings of the Queen archetype on Rhiannon's Wheel of the 9 Houses of Initiation. Excuse me. Now, the distorted sovereign one, the distorted queen or king archetype, which is so prevalent because we don't have healthy initiation ceremonies in our culture, and so the younger parts of ourselves carry the wounding patterns forwards. This unhealthy, distorted archetype is actually really disempowering. For though it may be feeling powerful for the one who is the top of the pyramid, yes, the center of all attention, the one who is to be the main and only truth and answer, the one who got it all, literally, yeah, creates systems and patterns of competition. And this competitive nature is fear-based because you are forever looking over your shoulder to see who is coming to knock you off your perch. And very terrified of who might outshine you and take a little bit of the great abundance of the goddess that is for everyone. Yeah. So you perpetuate patriarchic wounding patterns of lack, of greed, of domination, of disempowerment of others, and therefore actually on the inside disempowering yourself, because you will never actually truly believe it. You don't believe your own empowered, your embodied power. You don't believe your own empowerment. And that is why you have to control everything, hold on to that crown and kill for its keeping, as we of course see in mythology and stories, and beautifully enacted here as Lady Macbeth as well. The distorted queen archetype has always got these marvelous justified faces for her rage and destruction, for her life-taking, for her greed and hoarding, for her disempowering of others, for her competition, her competitive need to be the only one or the center of everything. Yeah, all of which rests on the mating woundings of the archetype on the opposite side of the wheel, the young feminine or masculine archetypes, and our survival behavior that have become modus operandum, have become the norm out of which we now behave, and the wounding lens through which we see the world. And that wounding lens, yeah, originates from the real painful places that we can have great compassion for in ourselves and in others, of not being allowed to be, not being loved, of not belonging, of not feeling that you are enough, that you are seen, that you are appreciated, that you are safe. What this means in the young archetype is that instead of the healthy form on the Wheel of Rhiannon, the young maiden, the wild maiden, you would become the shielded maiden or the princess. We all as women have these distorted archetypes, and one of them will be more prevalent than the other. So in the training, the priestess training of Rhiannon, we work with making these parts of ourselves visible, finding them, becoming aware of them, so that we can love them home and integrate them and initiate them into the healthy form of these archetypes, so that they don't have to rule us as we age and as we develop, and as we actually step into the queen archetype of the empowered one who wants to be in cooperation with everybody else. And so this is the thing where you have to work on these young parts to be able to be a healthy queen, a healthy, empowered woman who really operates not from wounding patterns. What we see in our society is that the wounding forms of the princess and the shielded maiden are really glorified, in fact, are portrayed as desirable by patriarchy. And this is, of course, a clear signal that this is something we have to really look at. Everything that power over systems endorse is something that needs to be questioned, because it's usually the reverse actually would fit in with a more goddess-based, goddess-centric way of interpreting life and choosing to manifest in the world around you. So the princess archetype feels she is entitled. Well, she is entitled, super entitled. She thinks that life owes her something, because after all, she's a princess, and demands to be rescued, and develops as she ages into forms that are glorified in television shows, like the whatever it is, you know, the footballer's wife, or the kind of conformists within a patriarchic society who have a hierarchical higher slice, they're closest to the top, and they are in constant competition with a smile. It's the backstabbing kind of form of competition. The one-upmanship, the bigger car, the better husband, the more expensive clothes or holiday, and not necessarily because you actually enjoy it, but because everybody else had it and you need to keep up with the Joneses. The other form, the shielded maiden, here represented by Éowyn, because the Lord of the Ring is an amazing modern mythology to look at this archetype in particular and her journey into healing. The shielded maiden is, doesn't trust life, absolutely is always on the defensive, feels the whole weight of the world is on her. There is no one else to help her. Often this has actually been true, but this is something that she now interprets life with. And she better be, the best, better than all the boys. In fact, the dragon, the most dragony dragon in the dragon's den. And so in our society, these are the people who may have originally rebelled against the norm of society, but who have then become incredibly successful within society and have created the exact copy of a patriarchic hierarchical system, only now they are at the top. These are also the people who might want to create some sort of matriarchic society where women are on top and men are at the bottom class of society, which for me is a complete distortion of matrilineal ways of being of our ancestors, and is exactly the same. In fact, I think that matriarchal is a patriarchal word, really. It's just a swapping of color, if you like. It is not a stepping through of the portal of opposites. So again, this archetype of the shielded maiden, really, this is what we're supposed to all be striving for in our society's projection. And then there is another form of the sovereign one, the wounding pattern, the shadow pattern. And this is the abdicator queen or king, or the victim queen. And this is really, of course, we have a perfect example of an abdication, in fact, sort of two, really, in the monarchy here in England, where you walk away from the throne, from your responsibility, from your realm, from your intimate relationship with the sovereign deity, with the sovereign goddess of the land, and you do not want to play your part. You might be very welcome to receive, but you do not want to give anything. And so the other part of this, that there's always a victim element, that the projection is always on other people doing it to you or having done it to you. There's never any accountability. The victim card to get out of responsibility free is used frequently by this particular distortion of the sovereign one. This is not empowerment. This is actually a form of disempowerment. So when we're looking at the choice of sovereignty, we have to pass the Queen's test. This is personified beautifully in this image, again from the Lord of the Rings, where Galadriel has to pass the test. Is she going to go into her dark shadow queen, or is she going to go into the shining sovereign one who is in service too? Or is she going to become the all-powerful one? It's all for me. That distortion, if you take that in relationship to the sovereign goddess of the land, yeah, and you're belonging to her. It is impossible to become the power-hungry, competitive, greedy. It is all for me. I am the only one who's important. I'm so entitled, so justified. They have done all these terrible things to me, and therefore I can have my revenge. Yeah, I will destroy them because I can. This is counter to the deepest meaning of sovereignty and disempowers your own inner sovereignty. So you may be very powerful on the outside. You may even succeed to be the queen of blood. Yeah. But you will not ever have the initiated inner embodied power of the sovereign one, personified here by the goddess Kuan Yin, which is not selfish. This empowerment of the sovereign one is not selfish. It doesn't mean that it's self-sacrificing, but it is not selfish. It is in service to and receives from the kinship, the deep intimacy with the land, with nature, and all beings that are part of the realm of the sovereign goddess. And so there are many women who are doing this, and what you find is about this quality where, I think we missed a slide there. Oh no, maybe we didn't. They must have tangled up in the putting this together. So you see the choosing of the realm, for example, as the queen of trees here, in the planting of trees all over the continent of Africa, where you work together in cooperation. The marks of the queen, always about cooperation, and you can achieve miracles. You can have the extraordinary power to really make a difference. And this, the living forms of the queen archetype for me, of the empowered woman, who sits in that seat, in that throne of inner sovereignty. Yeah. She has specific qualities that we can learn from of how to do that. So there are trailblazers who show the healthy way, like the Tree Sisters, for example. Again, trees, environmentalism, and the care for others who are in less fortunate places than we find ourselves. These are absolutely part of the markings of the queen and are the antidote to the disempowerment of hoarding and greed. So consideration, encouragement, intimacy, responsibility, courage, these are queen qualities, inner sovereign qualities, qualities of an empowered person. Many examples of trailblazing queens from different cultures who really have made a difference in the fight against female genital mutilation, in the standing for the pagan spiritual path as being recognized as a true spiritual path and not just some sort of faddy nonsense, as the reclaiming of the land belonging to the indigenous people of those lands rather than the colonizer monarch who came in, and white people in particular all over the world have done this, this taker culture. Yeah, many examples of the queen qualities, the sovereign qualities, who stand in the face of violence, who stand for life, who stop the forces that would destroy from the power over places, who are often massively disempowering, taking away children, murdering people, torturing people, and the quiet dignity of the empowered woman, the empowered man, the empowered human, who has that embodied power seated in their connection to the inner sovereignty. That is the gift from the goddess, of course. What you see again and again in protest, that is not rebellion, but that is a revolution for something, is that you get the empowerment for everyone as a direct result of the actions of the sovereign one, of the queen archetype in action. And so if we're looking at Rhiannon as a way-showing goddess, which she is, goddess of perseverance, sovereign queen goddess, and her wheel of opposites. We really get to choose how we want to be as empowered people in the world. Do we want to be the top of the pyramid, or do we want to create circles of equals, overlapping realms where we support each other, mutually supportive as opposed to competition? What an amazing force for good we would be. What an amazing empowered movement of love in action we would become. So if we see the overlapping circle in this form of the Viscea Pisces, what we see is the portal between two opposites, where we step into our deeply intimate kinship to the sovereign goddess, who initiates us to the sovereignty inside ourselves, which is not depending on approval, disapproval, doesn't have to rebel against, doesn't have to prove anything about anybody on the outside. It comes from an inner strength, an inner empowerment. That is the true empowerment of the sovereign one, to step through those apparent opposite into the portal of embodying the sovereign one as the example given by the goddess herself, so that we may be her embodied power, her empowerment for ourselves and for others. The strongest fabric in human community is women supporting women. And from that place of women supporting women, women supporting men, women supporting people, people supporting people. So I hope that this talk and the Sovereign Goddess may inspire you to step into your own empowerment by doing the inner work of all the places that would stop you, meeting those places, integrating those places, healing those places, initiating those places, or at the very least becoming aware of those places that rule us otherwise. And that we may sit as a circle of equals in the throne of our empowerment, helping each other in mutually supportive, beautiful ways. Thank you so much for being with me and listening to this presentation. I hope it inspires. If you want to work with me further, please come and find me at thepathoflovemysteryschool.com, where you can find all my offerings. Some of them are online, working with the masculine wheel of Rhiannon, for example, and some of them are in person, such as the Priestess of Rhiannon training, of course. For now, I love being in cooperative events, and this is an absolutely fantastic one. So thank you so much for having me as part of this. And until I see you all again, thank you so much, and goodbye for now.